Hello and welcome to Fully Expressed with me, Aisha Hilton. And today I'm talking about the struggle to sound human in the age of AI and why being real matters more than ever and how hard it is to prove that you're human sometimes. So I've always loved technology and started my career working in IT when I finished university. I worked as a technical writer for online software developers, and then I got another job when I came back from working overseas as an international aid worker in Thailand, working with Burmese refugees. And when I got back, I couldn't get a job in that sort of field. So I went back to IT and I worked for a very exciting company called Sausage Software. And we were like the darlings of the IT sector at the time. I think Google in the early days, I swear there was a pool table from memory and people riding skateboards in the office. And it was amazing and exciting. And so I've always had that love of technology, and I've been a web designer for 20 years. I did my postgraduate studies in virtual communication in the year 2000. I started that when I worked for Accenture, and it was just so exciting, and I was a little bit ahead of my time in trying to develop mobile phone apps before smartphones were a thing. I've always had this great love of technology. And then when AI came out into the public arena, I was an early adopter of teaching business owners and creatives how to use ChatGPT for all sorts of things. And then when Midjourney came out, I was so excited as someone who's an amateur artist, not a very good one, but would like to be a better one, generating images with Midjourney. And I was really excited about the creative possibilities of this technology and how we could use it for good. And of course, there are so many valid moral issues, but I'm not going to address them here because I'm talking about something else. But I feel them as well, and it does create some tension in myself, but also as a creator. It's so exciting for me. I write music and myself, and then I create it with AI, and I couldn't do that without this technology. But I also understand the moral issues, and it's a quandary, and it's kind of crap, to be honest, that, there's so much out there that we can't fix. But with Midjourney, I was able to generate, over the last, 4 years, over 80,000 images, and so many of them have been really stunning. I've printed some up and I have them on my walls. I've made beautiful artworks for people for their oracle decks and for my own. And the images are sometimes, I don't know if I have any special ability, but I feel like I have this relationship with Midjourney where I can create real magic. So it's not like the slop you see just generated. They're really beautiful. And now, as AI is even more ubiquitous and, it's everywhere, right? And you might not even notice it, but it's been like in Netflix and stuff for quite a while, where it makes recommendations about shows that you would like. But now, it's in nearly everything. And there's so much content being spewed out by large language models, LLMs, and everything's starting to sound the same. So when I open my Gmail, so many of the emails I receive are clearly generated by ChatGPT, Claude, or some other LLM. And you would have noticed this too by now. There's the patterns in the writing that make it obvious that it's AI. And now there are even AI tools to run your AI copy through to make it sound less like AI. So it's weird. And even when I write my own stuff, I'm trying to make it not sound like AI, but I have a degree in writing and postgraduate degree in virtual communication. So to me, it's good communication can sound like AI. And you're probably seeing the same AI generated content in your inbox that I am. And perhaps you're even doing it yourself because it's such an easy way to craft a quick email to your list. And I know if you're writing on Substack, you might be using AI to help you generate your content as well. And I think that there are lots of people that aren't good writers or need help to communicate, especially if their native language isn't English, right? So this is where LLMs can really help people. And so there are many use cases for using AI to generate text, like boring manuals, standard operating procedures, or instructions, things that I used to do for a living. I could now record on a Loom video and Loom would turn that into instructions. It's amazing technology. But when we're trying to share our voice, to speak our truth, to invite people into our world, AI can't do that for us. Even if we do train it on 20 of our best blog posts that capture our voices, because we need to insert our being into our words to share our stories, things that an AI wouldn't know unless we tell it, because it's the stories that are going to make it more human. AI will know facts, it will know, good language structure, but we're beings of stories. Storytelling goes back as far as since the world was created, back to rock paintings even. So, we need to insert ourselves back into our work. Even if you are using, a large language model like Claude or ChatGPT for a lot of your stuff, it's going to have more impact if you've got real stories in there. And it's interesting, the most listened to podcasts and articles from my Substack, I'm still a newbie on Substack, but the ones that have been most listened to and consumed are the ones that had emotion and made people feel. I shared about the death of my stepfather, Derek, and we just had the first anniversary of that death last week, and how he thought he had more time to do his work in the world. And yesterday I found out that my friend's brother had died, and he was a beautiful young man with young children, and he died of cancer. And it's like, we don't know how long we've got. I'm even tearing up as I say this. And, life is so precious and it's not guaranteed. And in the episode that I shared about the death of Derek and him not, writing his book about Chinese medicine, I cried in that episode. I was feeling all the feels, and people really resonated with that. I also did an episode on escaping family violence, and this had a lot of listens. And perhaps because people are naturally voyeuristic, I don't know, but also because it's such a big issue for so many people around the world, especially where I live. We've got a high domestic and family violence horror story, so many of them, to be honest. And it's really vulnerable for me to share myself in these podcasts. And I found that vulnerability is what connects us with each other. And this is obviously backed up by research by Brene Brown and other people. And for those who know me personally, I'm a little bit of an oversharer, and I don't know why that is, but it's definitely part of my character now. And I'm also someone who's innately curious about other people and want to know about them as well. So it goes both ways. And this ability to be vulnerable has seen me have the most interesting and extraordinary connections with people, including and often with random strangers. I was on a cruise once, and the tables in the dining room were very close together. And within just a few minutes, the elderly gentleman at the table next to me shared how his wife had died of dementia recently, and that's why he was on the cruise, just to sort of recover, and how much money he had left in his retirement, for those in Australia, in his superannuation fund, and then what he was going to do next. And he asked my advice about his plans, and my partner at the time was gobsmacked at how easily this man had shared with me so much information. And on that trip, other guests also confided in me. And this vulnerability is paired with genuine curiosity. I'm naturally curious and interested in people, and they feel this. And I love these random interactions with strangers that are profound in the moment, even though I mostly won't ever see them again. And there's also this really interesting thing called the vulnerability hangover, which is coined by Brene Brown. And it's this intense feeling of dread, shame, or anxiety that can wash over you after you take an emotional risk, like sharing like that guy did, right? And it can occur when you open up and share your true self or set boundaries and subsequently feel uncomfortable about having done so. So I know that people have had that hangover after talking to me, and I've also had that hangover. And, it can actually have a big impact, when someone else has a vulnerability hangover after talking to me, because then they have feelings of shame and anxiety about sharing so much. And some things they've shared are really intense, and I haven't judged them for it. I've been supportive, but sometimes they, react and pull away from me, and that's been really hurtful. But just having that natural curiosity and care for people is a really fundamental part of my personality. And why I'm sharing this is that there's this fine line between this dance of between sharing ourselves and revealing, and then overdoing it and feeling too exposed, which I did address in the previous episode as well. about speaking our truth. So to bring it back around to AI, in this age of AI, being real is the only thing that's going to set us apart from this slush of slop of AI generated content. When we show up imperfectly in our messiness and also in our glory, we're going to stand out from that slop. As an Australian, many of us were trained not to shine too brightly. We're in the land of the battlers, we champion underdogs, and we have a saying called fair go. Everyone deserves a fair go. And we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome. I think it's also in New Zealand as well, but it's definitely part of Australian culture where highly successful, prominent or ambitious individuals are criticised, resented or cut down to size. They're too big for their boots. So metaphorically, the tall poppies, those who rise above the rest, are cut down to bring them back to the perceived norm. So it can be extra hard to put yourself out there in the public domain and speak your truth, especially as it does make you stand out. It's not easy. Lots of people have podcasts, right? Lots of people have blogs, lots of people put stuff out there, but there's a whole lot of other people that don't put stuff out there. And unless you've done it yourself, you don't realize how hard it is, to put yourself out there and to open yourself up to judgment and criticism. And I know many people who aren't Australian have also experienced this in their families where there was so much pressure to fit in, blend in and not stand out. But in the age of AI, we have to stand out. We have to share our wisdom, our knowledge, our experiences, because we're playing a vital role in how the world moves forward. So amidst this AI slop where everything sounds the same, our voices are needed more than ever. But I have found myself analysing my human writing style, crafted over decades of professional and personal use, and wondering if I sound like AI even when I'm writing a piece. The other day, I even thought about leaving an intentional typo in a piece of writing as evidence of my humanity. I couldn't do it though. I have plenty of typos in my text messages to friends and family, and I'm quite renowned, or something less flattering than renowned, for doing so. And I don't care, right? But when I write professionally, I want to have no typos. And it's funny though, you can spend hours editing a book or days and have it professionally editing, and you get it published and you get the print book, and the first thing you see is a typo. So it's impossible in large text to get every typo, but at least in short form text or this longer form text in Substack, you want to have no typos. But I did actually consider it, but I couldn't do it. And large language models, they've been trained on so much good writing, the moral issues of that aside. And, it means that AI often writes well and uses common literary devices. So professional writers who are trained in writing, like I was, also write well. And sometimes you can't tell the difference, right? Because we're also employing the literary devices that we've learned and used over decades. And things that stand out as AI are the things that I learned in my degree in writing and communications: questions, em dashes, the Oxford comma, though I was never a huge fan of using the Oxford comma. I do use it sometimes. And now even groupings of three, which we were also taught in marketing to list things in threes or at least odd numbers like 5 to create interest and tension. That's now a tell for AI, right? So I'm now often making lists of 4 or 5, at least not 3. And it's just crazy, right? That we now have to try and write as humans to not sound like AI. And I don't know if you've noticed it too, but there's this type of beigeness that comes to AI generated writing. It's now being trained on the content it's generated. So the sameness is being further entrenched into the content. It spews out slop. It then eats or consumes the slop and then makes even more slop. So I guess that you might be noticing this as well, and that a lot of content feels AI generated. And even if we can't quite put our finger on it, it's just missing something, and our spidey senses can pick it up, especially if we use AI a lot ourselves like I do. But sometimes we're totally wrong and it was written by a human, so it's confusing. So what are we to do? Whoops, I asked a question, but it is a genuine question, not an AI question. So for me, I have felt the pressure to change my writing style that was honed over years of being a technical writer for technology platforms where words were used succinctly and clearly, to then move into more emotive and personalized writing after that career path ended. And now I just find myself trying to not sound like AI. And unfortunately, I don't have any concrete solutions. I just know that the human voice that speaks from the heart and from real experience is worth so much more than AI generated words. And we have to keep sharing from this place of vulnerability and humanity. This can't be replaced by AI when you're speaking your truth from your heart and soul and sharing lived experiences. So even if you use AI, for appropriate tasks like I do, especially boring things, that's fine. But I personally am going to keep honing my craft and speaking from my heart to your heart. And, I hope that you can do that too. But we're living in this strange era of, AI generated content and, trying to find the humanness, because I think as AI becomes even more ubiquitous, it's that connection and realness that more people are desiring than ever before. So I'd love to know your thoughts on AI generated content, how you're using it and how you're trying to keep it human, in your own writing and your words. And even like this podcast, I do one take. If I stuff it up right at the beginning, I will start again, but I don't edit it. I want to just, talk to you like I'm having a conversation across the table from you with a cup of tea. So you'll notice I'm a bit of a word stumbler. I don't really like talking out loud. See, I can't even say loud. I much prefer writing, but I think when you hear my voice, you can tell that I'm human. I'm sure I could find an AI that I could feed this podcast recording to, and it would probably generate something similar. But I'm here speaking live, speaking from my heart, and I hope that you can feel that too. And I look forward to, hearing your fully expressed voice, whether it's in writing or in audio. And so here's to living a fully expressed life. Lots of love.